What do you make of the fact that this individual observer, you as an individual observer, only get a finite amount of time to exist in this world? Does it make
Uh,
you sad?
no, actually, it doesn't make me sad. So, okay, full reveal. I have been doing contemplative practice in the Zen tradition for 30 years. I've been staring at a wall for 30 years. And it's taught me a lot, right? I really value what that practice has given me about the nature of experience. And one of the things it's taught me is like, I don't really matter that very much. This thing I call Adam Frank is really, it's kind of a construct. There's this process going on of which I am actually fundamentally, and that's super cool. But it's gonna go. I don't know where it came from. It's gonna go. I don't really need it to, and then who the hell knows? I'm not an advocate for an afterlife, but just that, like, what I love. Zen has this idea of beyond birth and death, and they don't mean reincarnation. What they mean is, dude, you don't even really understand what life is. You know what I mean? On like this, this core level of your own experience. So, your ideas about what death is are equally ill-formed. And it's so, the contemplative practice really tries to focus on experience itself. Like, spend 5 days at a Zen session doing contemplative practice from 7 a.m. until 9 p.m., obviously with breaks. And you'll really get a much deeper understanding of like what my own experience is. What is it really like? It forces you to learn how to stabilize your attention. Because, attention is kind of like this thing, like it's usually just like, oh, over there. Oh, my foot hurts. Oh, I got to do my taxes. Oh, what's that guy over there? Why is he wearing those stupid shoes? And with the contemplative practice, you learn how to stabilize it. And once you stabilize it, you can now begin to sort of explore the phenomenal nature of it. So what I think I've learned from that is like, kind of whatever, I'm not really kind of real to begin with. The Adam Frank part, the identity, the thing. And the part of me that is real is, everything's coming and going. It's all coming and going. Well, how could I ever not come and go when the entire world is just, Buddhism has this idea of codependent arising. Nothing exists. Nothing has self nature. Nothing exists by itself. It's an endless, infinitely connected web.
But still, there's a deliciousness to the individual experience. You get attached to it, and it ends, and it's good while it lasts, and it sucks that it ends. Like you can be like, well, everything comes and goes. But like, I was eating ice cream yesterday. Found this awesome low carb ice cream called Delights here in Austin, and it ends.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was staring at the empty container, and it was
That's beautiful, man. I love that.
You could say like, yeah, well, that's how it all is. But yeah,
can I say that? This is what I've learned from because I love your idea of the deliciousness of it.
Yeah.
But what I think happens with contemplative practice when it deepens is that it's not just you're not just saying, right? This is why so I do koan practice. So this is a tradition in Zen that it was established. It was a teaching method that was established like 1,000 years ago. There are these book of koans, and every koan, if you've ever read Gödel Escher Bach, he's got a whole chapter on koans. They're kind of non-logical problems that you have to work on. One of my favorite one was stop the sound of the distant temple bell. You're like, what? Every time my teacher gives it to him, I'm like, what are you talking about? There's this whole Zen thing of like, up is down, but down is up. You must understand this. So, your job with these koans is to sit with them, until you sort of kind of, you realize what the thing is trying to teach you, what aspect of experience it's trying to teach you. So there's no answer. And in fact, actually, you don't give an answer. You actually usually have to demonstrate. The first time when I when I did a koan and the guy was like, don't tell me the answer, show me the answer. I was like, what are you talking about? But after doing these for years now, I've kind of learned the language of them. So I could never tell you. If I told you the answer, I could give you a koan and tell you the answer. You'd be like, what? It's not the words. It's the, so like your experience of like, yeah, the cup is empty. With a contemplative practice, as it deepens over years, and it really does take years. Just like anything in math, took me years to understand Lagrangians. You kind of come to a deeper understanding with like, yeah, the words of like, it's not just like, oh, everything changes. You actually feel that movement. Like you feel it with like breath to breath, and it really becomes, sometimes I have this feeling, this is messed up, but of just joy. And it's not connected to anything. Right? That's what I've kind of gotten from practice. It's just like, yeah, that passage, that infinite passage of moment to moment, that is truly the way things are. And it's okay. Like it's not okay because I have a feeling about it, okay? I want it to be okay. It just is okay. It's a pretty awesome
Yeah,
thing.
that's beautiful. I mean, maybe it's the genetics, maybe it's the biochemistry of my brain, but I generally have that joy about experience, just
Yeah.
amorphous joy. But it seems like, again, maybe it's my Eastern European roots, but there's always like a melancholy that's also sitting next to the joy. And I think it always feels like they're intricately linked. So the melancholy is maybe about the finiteness of experience, and the joy is just about
Yeah.
the beauty of experience, and they're just kind of sitting there.
Yeah. Which is cool, actually, because that, I'm also, I come from Eastern, my roots are Eastern European as well, going back. And I get it, right? I mean, but that's also the cool thing. I think one of the things is like, yeah, well, that is what it is. That is what it is, right? You don't have to do anything. You don't have to like manipulate it or move it around or like, yeah, this is the experience,
Can you speak to just the practical nature of sitting there from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m.?
Like, what the hell are you doing, bro?
What's powerful? What's fascinating to you? What have you learned from just the experience of staring at a wall?
Yeah, yeah. So, it's not really. I mean, you're facing a wall, and what you're doing is you're just sitting with. There's different meditative practices, right? There's counting breaths. So that's usually what I do. I sit down and I start counting breaths. And for the first half hour, it's just like blah, blah, blah. I'm thinking, like I said, I'm thinking about my taxes. I'm thinking about what I got to do later on, yada, yada, yada. First time I ever did a full session, a 2-day session, I swear to God, I had Bruce Springsteen's Born to Run album track through from the beginning to the end with the pauses. This was back when there were LPs.
Yeah.
With the freaking
nice.
Pauses. Because my mind was just like, I need to do something. So it literally played the whole album in order.
That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing to see, because you really do. You see the dynamics of your mind. But what happens is, and this took me a while. I used to hate sitting. I do it, but after a while, the mind gets exhausted. Like that part of the mind, the upper level, the roof brain chatter is just like there's nothing else to do. And then you get bored. And I realize that's when something interesting is going to happen, because you kind of like drop down. And now it's a very physical practice. People think you're just sitting there not thinking or thinking about not thinking. Actually, it becomes a very physical process where you're really just following the breath. You're kind of riding the breath, and it gets very quiet, and within that quietness, it's, there's a path, because obviously Buddhism is always like, not about thinking, but there's a huge literature. So these guys are always about don't think. I've written all this stuff, but they're guideposts. They're like the finger pointing at the moon. And, there's the idea first, your mind is usually scattered, right? Like, right, right now when I walk out, I'm going to go get the Uber and everything. My mind's going to be all over the place. But with sitting, first you concentrate the mind so that there's no more scatter anymore. The thoughts are still happening, but you're just not, they're happening up there. You're not even paying attention to them. And then as time goes on, you unify the mind, which is this very powerful thing where kind of the self drops away, and there's just this presence. It's kind of like a raw presence. And that's often where the joy upwells from. But you sit with whatever. Maybe you're going to sit and you're going to have maybe you're going to go through like an hour of being bummed out about your mom who died or something. You're just going to sit with whatever comes up. You're going to make that's why the sitting part, you're making the commitment. I'm going to sit here with whatever comes up. I will not be moved. And then what you come away with, it actually over time, it actually changes kind of who you are. Like I'm still the asshole I was from New Jersey growing up, but I just have more space now for things,
Yeah. Once Jersey, always Jersey.
Always Jersey.
But I love the Bruce Springsteen just blasting in your head.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Why are we here? What do you think is the purpose, the meaning of human existence?
It's good that we just had the last conversation, because I'm going to give this answer, which is so corny. It's love. And I'm not messing around, because really, actually, what happens, so within Buddhism, there's the idea of the bodhisattva principle. You're here to help. You're just here to help, right? Compassion. Like that's a really essential part of this path, of the Dharma path. And when I first started, I was like, I don't care about compassion. I'm here for knowledge, right? I'm here. I started contemplative practice because of the usual thing. I was suffering. I had, the reason everybody comes to things like this. Life was hard. I was going through stuff. But I also wanted knowledge. I wanted to understand the foundational nature of reality. So it was like compassion, whatever. But then I found out that you can't get that. You can't go to this level without compassion. Somehow in this process, you realize that it really is about helping all sentient beings. That's the way they frame, just being here to help. So I know that sounds cornball, but especially for a guy from Jersey, which is like, the main thing is to get over. Like your job is to get over. But that's really what I found. It is actually kind of, and that's what some of that joy is just, it's like this. One of the things I have when I have like really, There's a kind of experience I'll have in contemplative practice, which will carry out into the world, which is just this gratitude for the fact that the world gives you everything.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a certain way, right? Just the blue sky and the breath. The world is just giving you itself completely unhindered. It holds nothing back.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the experience. And then you kind of like, oh, I need to be helpful because who's not having this experience, you know?
So just love for the world as it is.
Love for and all the beings who are suffering. Everybody's suffering. Everybody's suffering. You know, your worst political opponent, they're suffering, you know? And our job is just to try and drop our biases and our stories and see this fundamental level at which life is occurring.
And hopefully there's many alien civilizations out there going through the same journey out of suffering towards love.
Yeah, that may be a universal thing about what it means to be alive.
I hope so.
I hope so too. Either that or they're coming to eat us.
Especially if they're a type 3 civilization.
Yeah, that's right. And they got really big guns.
Well, this was a truly mind-blowing, fascinating, just awesome conversation, Adam. Thank you for everything you do, and thank you for talking today.
Oh, thank you. This was a lot of fun.